Chapter 39. Press Conference.
This is Anita Sanchez, Channel 7 News, and we are standing by in Dragon Strike Square in the capital city of Reach, waiting for the Black Dragon King Valerius to speak.
A female reporter said into her microphone as she stared into the camera with almost breathless anticipation.
The excitement here is almost palpable. After nearly a week of crises, and no word directly from King Valerius, people are hungry to know what he has to say about the new state of the world. His silence has signaled a dereliction of duty to some. The very fact that the 9th Dragon Shifter appeared in his lands indicates weakness, not to mention the series of terrorist bombings that have yet to be solved. Some say the authorities don't have a clue who is behind it and have no plan to stop it from happening again. Can King Valerius keep his territory safe?
A male anchor on another channel stood beside her, though they acted as if the others simply were not there. He wore a tailored grey suit with a splash of colour in his red tie. In a deep, compelling voice he said,
"This is Kent Rogers from Channel 5 News. First on the scene with the facts you need and the incisive commentary you want."
He strutted a few feet before facing the camera again, giving a wider view of the rather raucous crowd in the square.
"The White Dragon Shifter appeared above our skies, saving our people from a bomb that was set by an unknown party, only to engage in a spectacular aerial battle with King Valerius himself. Deaths allegedly occurred in the below from said battle."
His tone made it clear that any news coming out of the below was not to be trusted, and maybe if any deaths had occurred there, then could they possibly matter?
"Some claim to have seen the White Dragon Shifter flying over certain empty fields the other evening. But in this day and age where everything is photographed or filmed, there is no such footage. Make of that what you will. But while the White Dragon Shifter has made themselves scarce, it cannot be said enough that they have also shaken the world with their brief appearance."
Another male reporter for a more hipster channel, dressed in sleek black pants and a black turtleneck with chunky black framed glasses, said into his microphone, "Ian Scalera here, reporting on yet more news of the dragon variety. The White Dragon Shifter used their body to protect everyone from a bomb blast that was the first of 2 that have gone off in the capital city of Reach this week. The second went off during a Humans First rally where, no surprise, the White Dragon Shifter was not in attendance. Some have claimed this second bombing means that Humans First could not possibly be involved in the first bombing, as their charismatic leader, Jasper Hawes, was in attendance at the second, while others believe that this second bomb was merely a smokescreen to draw attention from what some call a terrorist group. If it wasn't Humans First, or some shifter group, the question is, who could be setting these bombs off? And what is their goal? Terrorists love to terrorize, but they normally have something they want to stop or to happen. In this case, we have no idea what that is. Could it simply be a love of chaos? A Joker-esque desire to cause pain and death? We'll be talking about that more after the Dragon King's address. A man and woman, both in their late 30s and dressed in stylish pantsuits, were seated on directors' chairs, slightly turned to face one another. It appeared they were trying to turn Dragon Strike Square into an approximation of their studio set, but with the black wet stones and the crowds behind them, they were being herded back from a stage that had been set up in the middle of the square. It wasn't quite as homey as they'd likely had wanted. The female host tucked auburn hair behind one shapely ear as she said in an almost husky tone to her co-host,
"Now, John, we all heard King Ilarian's statement about claiming his mate. In all of my research on shifters, there hasn't even been a whisper of dragon shifters having mates. Considering there are only 8 of them, and they don't seem to get along very well, that appeared to be a safe assumption, but clearly not anymore."
Her male co-host had a slick smile as well as slicked back dark brown hair that tended to curl at the base of his neck.
"The werewolves will now have a potential rival at the box office and in romances with this news for sure, Laura. I can see the movie titles now. Dragons mate 3.
They will indeed, John, though some claim that mates are simply a part of werewolf culture and not a biological or spiritual component.
Laura corrected. John let out a braying laugh and slapped his knee.
You better be prepared for the metric ton of angry comments we're going to get from that statement, Laura. You know how devoted our fans are to the notion of fated mates.
Laura's answering smile was a little thin.
Too true, John. But I think this should excite them. When we think of fated mates, we believe them to be magical, drawing the spirits to one another. In this case, King Ilarion flew all the way here from Russia for the white dragon shifter without knowing about them. But here he is, ready to devote himself to the white dragon shifter sight unseen.
John nodded, trying to appear sage but seeming more oily.
You've got a point there, Laura. But Queen Esme has also made her way to our shores, though she has not put out any statements as of yet. But perhaps she is going to claim the white dragon shifter is her mate. In fact, there are rumors that all the dragon shifters are coming to the entry points of King Valerius's territory. They might all be here to claim the white dragon shifter too.
Laura's eyes sparkled.
Perhaps they're here to fight over the white dragon shifter's hand.
It could be. I think the only thing we can rule out is that King Valerius is not the white dragon shifter's mate.
John guffawed.
Their fight put an end to any of that speculation.
Several influencers from social media were also on site despite the lack of notice. Most were from Reach, but some had come from neighboring cities, beating through the traffic to make their way to the square that was completely filled now, with hardly any breathing space. A YouTuber with a green mohawk who had his GoPro camera out spoke to it in a staccato report.
So the mainstream, or should I say lamestream media, is totally reporting what the dragons want them to. See here, everybody says that the white dragon shifter saved us from a bomb during the 30th anniversary event. But I say that the white dragon shifter brought the bomb to the square and it went off early. I know you all think you've seen the video, but I have had it analyzed and I can tell you it's fake. I have a 4-hour documentary on this subject which conclusively proves my point and draws a direct connection between the White House dragon shifter and the Kennedy assassination. So watch that after Valerius's pablum for the masses.
There were two beauty YouTubers looking ethereal in their all-white outfits and shimmery makeup. One of them posed her hands artistically by her made-up face and made duck lips to her camera as she said,
This look is in honor of the white dragon shifter. White, with hints of metallic pink, blue, purple, and red. It is all reminiscent of snow and pure ice.
Her co-host shivered appreciatively.
So icy, but is going to be the hottest thing out there at the clubs this season. I've heard that white wings are becoming all the rage. We'll be putting together custom color palettes that you can use to make yourself into the white dragon shifter. Do you think the white dragon will show up tonight?
The woman asked. The other tapped her chin.
I think it would be amazing if they did, wouldn't it? Think of us doing black and white dragon looks together. Perfect!
Her eyes shone. Finally, a matronly woman who looked like she had seen more news made than the other reporters, mainstream or not combined, was interviewing Shione. The Sphinx shifter appeared serene and unruffled by all of the excitement around them. She was a sea of peace in stormy waters, but she knew how important this moment would be for all that came, and so even she felt nervous underneath her calm exterior.
Counselor Shione, it is a pleasure to speak to you on such a momentous night.
The reporter began.
It is a pleasure to be here, Jacqueline. As always, I look forward to our talks.
Shione pressed a friendly hand on the reporter's right forearm.
Now, Shione, you are the woman of the hour. You are the only one here that knows what King Valerius plans to tell us this evening.
Jacqueline said with a flash of white teeth in her dark face. Shione covered her mouth as she gave out an almost girlish laugh.
I know some of what he intends to say and do, but I can honestly tell you that I am sure to be as surprised by the whole of it as you and all the viewers are. I would imagine that he is going to address King Alarion's rather startling statement about taking the white dragon shifter as his mate. Do dragons have mates?
Jacqueline's eyes narrowed. She clearly smelled a major scoop. Just getting the Sphinx shifter on her program would be enough to drive her viewership through the roof, as opposed to the other channels, who only had their reporters making the same statements in slightly different ways. And she was right to be hopeful.
I can tell you that King Alarion's statements were nothing more than braggadocio if he intends to give the world the impression that there is some sort of fated aspect to mates among dragons.
Shioni explained, her fingers tenting in front of her chin.
King Alarion has absolutely no claim to the white dragon shifter and has had no communication with them. And how do you know that? Are you speaking to the white dragon shifter?
Jacqueline's eyes went sharp.
I can tell you that the relationship between King Valerius and the white dragon shifter will be one of his talking points this evening.
Shioni evaded.
Forgive me, Shioni, but talk is cheap.
Jacqueline pressed.
He could say anything, and we wouldn't know whether the white dragon shifter agrees with his statements or not.
Shioni merely smiled and said,
I assure you, Jacqueline, that the world will be quite sure that what King Valerius says is true after tonight. And what about the bomb scare that occurred over in West Mid tonight? King Valerius and you were seen there. Can you tell the viewers anything more about that?
Jacqueline asked. Shioni stared directly into the camera.
Only that the person responsible will be brought to justice. It sounds as if you have a good idea who they are.
Jacqueline remarked as she noted Shioni's certainty.
We know.
Shioni agreed.
Can you tell us who? That is part of an ongoing investigation, so I cannot say more.
Shioni told her almost gently.
I am always writing between 2 and 4 stories according to a public calendar that I update every month. They all include gay romantic couples, and there's always a magical, paranormal, or futuristic setting. Unlike a book, which you can only just read and be satisfied or unsatisfied with, you get to tell me what you think at the end of every chapter. That's right, there's a comment section where members leave feedback, and sometimes things can happen, such as fan pairings becoming real pairings. To see what I'm writing this month, check out the calendar. It's always in the same place. I just overwrite it with the new schedule. Link to the calendar is in the notes. There has been criticism leveled against King Valerius for not speaking out after the bombings and the white dragon shifters revealed to the world before now. Can you discuss his reasons for this?
Jacqueline asked.
That's a very good question, Jacqueline. As you know, King Valerius likes to let the other powers that be react first and handle matters as that is what they are there for. They are democratically elected, and the people decide who is best to act in those roles. He only steps in when there is something he can add to the conversation, and until tonight, he felt it was best to let others say their piece.
Shioni explained.
But he is the most powerful of the dragon shifters, and the introduction of a 9th has consequences for us all.
Jacqueline protested.
The internal determinations of a shifter group are private, even those of the dragon shifters. No one is entitled to know those discussions. That has been the rule for 30 years now.
Shioni shot back.
Yes, but if the world is to be divided up yet another time, and our countries were to change leadership, and then such determinations will be made public after thorough discussion among the dragon shifters. Do you think it would be wise for such large and far-reaching decisions to be revealed willy-nilly before such discussion is had?
Shioni looked at Jacqueline pityingly.
To suggest that any statement should be made in less than a week is simply sensational and irresponsible. Everyone knows that King Valerius is taking care of things at all times, even if he doesn't make a big speech about it for you to report on.
Jacqueline blinked rapidly and looked nettled. Shioni had treated her like a child, which, in comparison to the Sphinx shifter, she was.
I've heard these same thoughts from those elected individuals you referenced.
Jacqueline retorted, her shoulders quivering slightly.
You should reveal the identities of those people, because the ones that elected them do have the right to know who the elected officials are who are incapable of doing their jobs.
Shione responded evenly.
There are sources. I realize that as a reporter you need sources, but surely you see the unfairness of all of this. King Valerius is required to give speeches about what should happen, while those who are responsible for such things hide behind your skirts, which are beautiful, by the way.
Shione gave a laugh at the end that was friendly and completely without acid. To those watching, they understood why she was Valerius's public face and the interface between him and the other world leaders. Playing hardball was clearly within her skill set.
Are the dragon shifters coming here to have those internal discussions with King Valerius?
Jacqueline shifted uncomfortably, but she doggedly continued on her set questions.
There are many discussions to be had.
Shione answered, which wasn't an answer at all.
And will King Valerius allow King Alarion to pursue his mate claim against the White Dragon Shifter?
Jacqueline pressed. There was a spout of fire that split the night sky, and the sound of massive wings flapping in the air. Everyone's hair was blown back as they looked up, as the black dragon dropped down towards the platform.
I think King Valerius will be the one to answer your questions now,
Shione said, and she melted into the crowd and went up onto the stage. 20 feet above them, the black dragon transformed into his human form. King Valerius's glorious naked body was revealed to everyone in the square, as well as all those watching. The flash of thousands of cameras going off blinded many as he dropped gracefully to the platform and landed in a crouch. He stood up, and Captain Simi of the Claw helped him slip on a black silk robe over his muscled shoulders. Shione walked up the steps of the platform and bowed before King Valerius. He inclined his head, and then she walked to his side. King Valerius stepped up to a bank of microphones. Beside him, Simi and Shione. There was no one and nothing else on the massive platform. To some looking on, they wondered why. King Valerius simply waited until the crowd settled down and silence filled the square. He was smiling slightly, his handsome face seemingly serene and unconcerned, as if he was there for something that was utterly pleasant. Yet those who watched couldn't see how that could be, but they wanted to find out.
People of reach. People of my territory. People of the world.
King Valerius began. His deep voice reverberated around the square.
Thank you for taking this time to listen to my words.
There was a burst of clapping and someone yelling, "We love you, Valerius!" Valerius smiled and nodded.
As I care for all of you.
He was careful not to use the word love. Caden noticed this, if no one else did.
I know that this past week has been concerning for many of you. On the one hand, we have had the terrorist and completely criminal acts of those behind the bombings. The thwarted one in this very square during our celebration of the 30th anniversary of peace, and one that was not stopped, which injured some and killed others at a meeting. "Humans first! Humans first!" someone chanted. There were cries to be silent, really to shut the fuck up, and there were also those that shushed the chanter simply because they thought it rude, but didn't necessarily disagree with what Humans First stood for. Valerius, though, acted as if he had not heard the person, though he did pause in his speech. And then there have been the dragons.
Valerius's eyes glittered as a nervous, excited swell ran through the audience.
There are those who have appeared at our shores. There are those who have acted as if they are entitled to come here into my territory and your home without leave.
Valerius paused. His gaze grew steely.
Those dragons should know better.
There was a shout of absolute delirium at those words. People clapped, whistled, and howled. Some in the press believed that the populace regarded the dragons who ruled over them rather like sports teams, and were eager to see them duke it out and have their dragon win. From the look on Valerius's face, maybe they might get their wish this time. As soon as the cheering died down again, Valerius spoke to the shining faces of people who gazed upon him as one might a god. The reporters were to say later, in amazement and with a touch of superiority, that the masses might complain about the Black Dragon King, but it was only because they wished he would rule them more than he already did.
"And there is another dragon,"
Valerius said, his mouth lifting into a smile that was almost infectious. The people's breath held. What was he going to say? It couldn't be something bad, could it? He was smiling.
"A new member of our clan. A very welcome addition to the world."
He spread his arms wide as if to encompass that world. There would be images of that moment, of the look on the people's faces, eyes shining, hands clasped almost as if in prayer in front of them, lower lips bitten in excitement and concern.
"When the white dragon first appeared, I misunderstood who they were and what they were doing here,"
Valerius said, and he lowered his head.
"In those initial moments, all I could think to do was to protect you all from the person I saw as a threat. I was mistaken, though. The White Dragon Shifter was not a threat. They are a hero."
There was a wild cry from the crowd, which only quieted into a murmuring as Valerius raised his hands.
"I know there are some who still believe that the White Dragon Shifter had something to do with the bombing, but I am here to assure you that their only role was that of savior. If they had not taken that bomb from the square to the drop, so many people would have been injured and died,"
Valerius explained, his expression somber and grim. There were murmurs of distress in the crowd.
"You should know that the White Dragon Shifter was not, I repeat, not a shifter when they spotted that bomb,"
Valerius explained. There were gasps.
"They were human, mortal, fragile. They fully expected to die when they leaped out into the drop,"
Valerius continued. His expression was filled with this wretched tenderness that none had ever seen before. The people who watched him felt his desire to save this precious human who had sacrificed themselves so that others would live.
"And that was when the spirit came and chose to be bound with them. That is the sort of person and spirit that the White Dragon Shifter is. Kind, compassionate, brave, selfless."
Voices rose up in amazement. Some people dropped to the ground and got on their knees, holding their faith medallions in their fingers as they whispered prayers of thankfulness for the spirits, and for this former human that they didn't even know the name of. Valerius let out a soft, sad laugh.
"You now know how brave they are. Or maybe you already did, considering how they reacted to me."
A ripple of laughter went through the crowd, but it was fond laughter. None doubted who would have won the fight had it gone on. Valerius's jaw clenched then, becoming serious once more.
"If they had not gotten away from me, I would have—"
He reached out with both hands as if to crush something.
"In my zeal to protect you, I could have made a terrible mistake, done a terrible thing. That is why all of us must go slowly with these new changes in our world. We must not make rash decisions. We must be certain of the facts, and we must understand the consequences of what we say and do before we say and do them."
There were nods, as if each of them was recognizing rashness in themselves.
"Many wanted me to rush out and speak after the White Dragon Shifter appeared. But imagine what I would have said before I knew the truth."
He turned his head to meet individual gazers in the crowd.
"I dread even thinking of it now. I would have smeared a brave hero as a terrorist interloper."
He shook his head. His long hair framed his face.
"You come to me for wisdom. You come to me for leadership. I must ask you, upon occasion, for patience, in order that I live up to those expectations."
There was a ripple of clapping that soon resounded in a roar. People shouted their love and understanding for the Black Dragon King. Valerius closed his eyes as if absorbing their response. He opened them only when it had grown silent again. The White Dragon Shifter has just come into this world. They are so very new to all of this, and they want to learn first and take their time before they make any decisions. They have a home here, and they don't want to leave it, Valerius explained almost beseechingly. Normally, when shifters join their clans, they are mentored and not expected to take a leadership role until they are ready. The White Dragon Shifter requests the same time and understanding before they take their role. I will give them that time and mentoring to them. Another round of applause, but this time more uncertain, as Valerius looked grim and determined. There are those, shifter and human, who would take that from the White Dragon Shifter, whether they want to spuriously claim to be mated with them. Valerius's lips writhed back from his teeth, and all knew he meant Illyrian, or would threaten their families if they do not use their power for evil ends. Who he meant by that wasn't clear, but the crowd booed at the very thought. They are young, though. They are new. They are small, yet fierce. Valerius smiled, and there was another wave of laughter. But there are those who would try to use their own strength to abuse our newest Dragon Shifter. I am here to tell them that to get to the White Dragon Shifter, they have to get past me. The crowd roared. It was deafening. The thunderous applause and shouts went on. Finally, Valerius raised his hands to quiet them. He was smiling and laughing. But wait! Do not take my word as that of the White Dragon Shifters. Let them show you that it is theirs as well. Valerius pointed towards the west. All eyes and cameras spun towards that direction. Let me introduce you formally to the White Dragon Shifter. To Iolair. Everyone gasped in awe as the beautiful white dragon suddenly appeared in the skies above them and started circling down.
Gay high fantasy romance is getting more popular, and I couldn't be happier. When I started writing my first gay fantasy story in 2009, I was definitely in the minority. The story was The Dark Earth, a 122-chapter tale that has elves, mages, reincarnation, demons, and dragons. My next high fantasy story was well after that, The Elven King's Blade, which is also complete. This is a portal fantasy story with fated mates between elves and humans, dark and light creatures, a mysterious illness that afflicts the royal ruling family, and of course, politics. Is anything sexier than politics? I think if you love Everdark, you know that it is very sexy. My current high fantasy story, The Night Prince, is even more involved with two couples so far, deadly rival elf races, legendary ancient kings who may or may not be still alive, runes, dwarves, orcs, fairies, humans, and dungeons. The story continues the fantasy romance that started with The Dark Earth and continued through The Elven King's Blade. You can read both completed fantasy stories and the current chapters of The Night Prince on my serial membership site. Link to the sign-up form is in the notes.